Welcome to the BS3 Radio YouTube page where we talk sports, music, and life. Today, this is more of a life topic. This is more of something that is continuing to happen, but it should not be happening. You see in the background, we have the George Floyd mural that was done. It's really tough to see this happening again. But we have three of my brothers here. We got my dad here. We got Al High. We got Tyon Mack. How's it going tonight?
Doing well.
Doing good. Good to see you.
Yeah, chilling, man. Trying to deal with all the civil unrest out here.
Yeah, man. So we're here to talk about George Floyd. We know George Floyd was rightfully murdered by the police. If you look at last week, we were talking about Ahmaud Arbery and then really police brutality, because it's something that continues to happen. It shouldn't be happening, but we're continuing to have this conversation. And I think this one, I'll just kick it off with our overall, thoughts and, feelings on it. This one was different because it was deliberate. It was like, it wasn't as if this was a mistake. This was something where for 8 minutes, he was, a knee was on his neck. So this was suffering. I don't wish this on anybody. I don't think anybody would wish this on anyone. So it's sad to see. But Tyon, I'll go to you first. Just your, initial thoughts with everything happening.
It's chaotic, man. It's chaotic. First, you look at the George Floyd situation, which is really, really painful. If anybody's watched that video, it's really, really painful to kind of watch, seeing a guy being held down with a knee in his neck, just dying from not breathing, right? And, if you've ever read I've read that drowning is like one of the worst ways to die, right? Because you can't breathe and there's nothing you can do about it. I'm sure that strangulation is very, very similar. Right? Like the fact that you're like fighting and you're trying to breathe and you just can't, right? So that's just a painful way to go. His family has to see that on video every day. This is all through the internet, on TV, et cetera, and what you're seeing now is you're just seeing people angry, right? You're seeing people kind of like just frustrated, just tired of it. You look at historically, we've seen this historically happen where, police brutality has been really, really high. People come out, we march, we protest, we speak up, we do all these different things, and nothing changes, right? So now you're seeing people that's just like, what next? Like, let's do something radical,
Right.
And that's what's happening. We're seeing just a radical change at this point, right? Where, people are, destructive. People are still marching, right? People are still marching, people are still speaking, but now they're being destructive, right? They're like, hey, if you don't want to hear me, so maybe if I do this, now you'll actually pay attention to what I'm saying, because we've been trying to say these things for the longest. And that's just the climate that's today, man. You have a lot of these newer, or I can say newer, younger people, because I think this is being led really by the younger people. I think the older,
Right.
Our older generation really was about like, hey, like, let's try to do this peacefully. We've seen kind of like that change, and we've seen things change slowly, right? I think the younger people are like, we're tired of waiting for things to change. We want something to happen like right now. And I think like that's the result. You're seeing it all across the nation. You're seeing it in other countries. Like other countries are protesting about this. So it is very, very serious right now. And like I said, it's chaotic. That's my word for it. It's chaotic right now.
Yeah. And I think what it comes down to is that people are tired of the let's march and let's wait for something positive to happen, because something positive hasn't been happening. You look at every single city almost, there's something going on. 30 cities, Dallas, they have a curfew, which there's marching going on. Atlanta, kind of pretty much where all of us are. Oakland, California, it's everywhere. And I think people are just tired of let's wait and see what's going to happen. And then we're talking about I can't breathe again. We've heard this same thing already said. So it's heartbreaking. It's tough to to see, but there is a push, I think, definitely with the younger people. I agree with you, Tyan. But Al, go ahead and which I appreciate you, man, because you've been vocal on Facebook, but also sharing out positive things about George, because the media is going to try to flip this and put him in a negative light. But go ahead, Al.
First of all, thank you for having this platform for BS3 Radio. Ben, thank you for having us on. I do want to acknowledge the officers who use their power of intent the right way. I want to them because it's so much negativity about, well, F the police. No. We need them to protect us. They're called to protect and to serve. My first thought of this George Floyd situation, I have not watched the video. I've just seen pictures of it all up and down my timeline on Facebook. And it brought me back to 2016 when I lived in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And that summer, there was a guy by the name of Alton Sterling who was killed in a similar way, but he had bullets put in his chest. Yeah. And I remember the unrest in Baton Rouge and just, man, the tension was high in the city of Baton Rouge, and how the government took so long to investigate his death and were they going to press charges. It took them like a year and a half, and we all knew that it was taking too long for them to press charges against the policeman. And it just brought back memories of that and how hurtful that was. And so my thoughts were just angry. I was hurt. I was upset. I began thinking about the plight of the African-American male, and I thought about the African-American men's rights. But the thing that I'm appreciative of now is that people are saying enough is enough. There's other cultures that are coming to speak out. And I could tell by I've been this year really working on understanding people's true intent, their true heart. Because it's one thing to say you're down for the cause, but then it's another thing to say for it to be words without any action. Right. So I commend those people who are all over the world who are marching for the cause. I commend the young people. I'm even considering on one of my off days maybe going out to go to a protest just to go show my kid, like, hey, this is what we're marching for. This is what you're fighting for, because this is about humanity. It's a humanitarian crisis. America's considered one of the most powerful nations in the world, the most blessed nations, and we have all these different issues. The coronavirus exposed a lot of this stuff, and now we have the police brutality. So just those particular things really stood out to me. Prayers and condolences to the family of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and the other people who have been their lives have been cut short by ignorance.
Right. And also, yeah, we definitely have to say that continue prayers for the family, because they have to experience this every day. This is someone that we call our brother, number one brother, because we're Black, but also brother in the Lord, because a story was shared by Al really talking about he was in the community. I talked about that earlier on the weekend wrap-up show. He was in the community. He was doing things in the community, was leading people to Christ and being influential in his community where it was needed. So George Floyd, like I said, is not a perfect person, but you could see what he was doing, what he was striving to become for his family, for his community, and everything that he was wanting to be. And a lot of people called him a gentle giant. People were saying that, hey, this is something he didn't want to be involved in. This is something that he wasn't resisting. So Dad, I'll go to you. And I know you have a longer history with police brutality, with racism, just, being older than us and experiencing more. So I really want to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, we appreciate You've given us this opportunity and this platform to express our thoughts, and also just echo what Brother Al and T-Mac had already said. I mean, as far as giving the Floyd family our condolences, and it's really hard to witness something as horrific as that episode. Mom and I was watching a movie. We've been watching a lot of Netflix and Prime during this pandemic, and it was a movie that was it wasn't a Regina King was in it. It wasn't a biography, but it was a movie regarding the Rodney King episode. And I can't remember the actual name, but it had King in the title. And when we was watching that movie, it kind of took us back to the Rodney King situation. And now here we are again. And that's been 20 plus years. So as hard as a man that grew up in the South and understood segregation, because I grew up in segregation and then integration, and then we had a race riot in my high school. Actually, I was in junior high school when this took place. But so I've experienced it firsthand as far as racism and bigotry, and this is a situation that's hard. The young brothers in our Kingdom Men class at church on Sunday, we have a Zoom class every Sunday, about 30 plus men, young men and older men. He posed the question, where are the older men during these protests? And he said, we need some older men to help guide and influence the young men. And we have some older gentlemen, some brothers that can give their life experiences, then we can maybe help the young men go in a direction that's positive, and not a direction that's negative. But the thing that a lot of us who grew up in the 60s, this is not a surprise to us. We're almost at the level of fatigue, because it's a vicious cycle that we go through, and we never see any positive change. We may see a little reform here or there, but we never see any positive change. And I applaud the young folks for their enthusiasm and their energy to get out and protest and march, and I support them 100%. But for me, it's hard to even fathom anything that can change, because we're talking about history of racism and bigotry and hatred in this country. And this country was founded on slavery. This country was founded on brutality. When we look at who they took the land from, the Native Americans, and how they brutalized and encamped the Chinese immigrants, and how they brought over African Americans as slaves. So you're talking 400 years of systemic racism and brutality and hatred. And it's hard for me to fathom something that's going to be a large change. There may be small changes here and there, but something that's going to be an overwhelming change. And I know this is probably something you don't want to hear tonight, but I'm just come from where I am right now. You young men, you can come from where you are. I'm coming from where I am. And I like the way you said that that Brother Al went out and witnessed and ministered to the young people, because that's where I am at this point. I'm at the point to where this particular situation didn't just start with George Floyd or Ahmaud Arbery, or not even, Rodney King. I mean, this has been going on since the creation of the world. And I shared with the brothers, I said, when Adam and Eve disobeyed God, the world, the nation, and the human race was in trouble. And now we have a storm to where people are tired, and then you have the coronavirus. And that's the difference in this particular episode than the ones in the past. People have been in their home for 2 months. So now they're stir crazy, and people haven't been getting their stimulus checks on time. You got unemployment rate higher than it's been since the Depression. You have people that's not only hurting, financially, but 70% of those who have passed away have been African Americans. So now you have all of this. So it's like the perfect storm.
Right.
And now you have these people that are coming out, and not only are they protesting during the day, but they're rioting at night because they're frustrated. They're mad. They're just tired, and a lot of them are broke, don't have jobs. So when the looting took place, that's what I saw. I saw people that some were taking advantage of the situation. Some were saying, well, I just got to eat, and I'm going to take whatever I got to take to feed my family. So that's my initial take when I first saw the video. And you went over it, you explained what happened, in detail. So I don't want to go back over that. But it was, very, it was disappointing to see what went down. But am I surprised? Am I outraged? Am I angry all over again? I'm not totally numb to it because I have, a son, I have grandsons. I need to make sure that they understand how to conduct themselves and how to walk in this country. But it was very heartbreaking to see that.
Yeah, and it's to add on to what you said, I think the looting shows that there is frustration being acted out, and I think also what we're starting to see now is that the looting is not just coming from Black and African American people. It's coming from people outside from cities. Here in Dallas, we were watching the news the other night. They tore a window out at a Whole Foods, and Whole Foods is in a more I would say high income area, and they said, oh, it's got to be the protesters, which they didn't know. There was nobody around, but I think there's people coming from outside cities. I think people from other cultures, and they're starting it, and I think people are following and contributing to it. I'm not gonna say that that's everybody, but I do think that is a number. And no, I mean, I'm not surprised either. I don't think any of us are surprised, but I think we are tired. Michael Jordan came out and said we've had enough. When was the last time Michael Jordan has really spoken about an issue? LL Cool J. I mean, people are coming out in different sports, different areas, different people. And I think it's to the boiling point. This is at that point. Anybody that cooks, when you're boiling that water and you got the lid on top and it's bubbling over, and 45 does not help this situation. The things that come out of his mouth, I'm not gonna say his name. The thing that comes out of his mouth, the things that he tweets, it produces more division that we've continued to see, and and go ahead, Ty.
I mean, not only that, I mean, you can just look at how African American people are engaged by the police, by other ethnicities, things like that, and that helps fuel the fire as well, right? So, when you look at a great example would be, during this whole coronavirus situation, when you had militant white people with guns protesting to go get haircuts, right?
Right.
Police didn't show up in riot gear and tear gas and all those things for those individuals, but you have people outside, Black people outside, walking around with signs, literally walking around with signs. And you have 40 officers out there with tear gas and rubber bullets and, and the paddy wagon and all these different things. There is a way that you are initiating that and inciting that violence. You're exciting those efforts But African Americans, they're like, look, like we're trying to peacefully protest, or we're trying to do this peacefully. We're trying to get our point across, and this is how you guys approach us, you know. And that goes, again back. You know, you look back in history. You look back to, you know, when your father, when Mr. Sutter was in high school or in middle school, and he could probably, I'm sure he can attest to, you know, peaceful protests back then with students and the police beating them down with clubs and water hoses and dogs, right? It's like this has been historically happening where we as African American people have consistently been met with violence, right? And so now you're seeing African American people meeting violence with violence. Right. And now all of a sudden it's this whole, oh, we need peace, we need this, and they're like, nah, it's over. Like we've tried that. It's you know, now we're on the stage, and I love social media for the reason that there's so many different like perspectives that are shared. There's so many different examples that is shared. You know, one of the examples that I love that somebody talked about was like about like the protesters, and somebody said, you know, well, I don't understand, why are you guys protesting that? Why are you guys looting and stuff and you're destroying stuff? You know, George Floyd has already died, right? And somebody's response was, well, when 9/11 happened, we went over there and blew up, you know, that whole country over there, right? 9/11 already happened. Why we go do that then?
Right.
You know, and when you think about those things, America itself has always responded to stuff with violence. And we are the only people that are always asked to be peaceful. Black people, we're always asked to be peaceful. No matter what happens to it, we're always asked to be peaceful. And like I said, I think like this younger generation is just like, nah, we ain't doing that. We're tired of it.
Right.
So I mean, my energy is for it. You know, I mean, I think about, you know, as Mr. Sutter mentioned, he's like, you know, he's concerned about his kids, his grandkids. You know, I'm concerned about my kids. But one thing that I really like that bothers me is the idea that I have to teach my boys how to operate in a society that's racist, and I am tired of that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like I like the stuff that I had to learn to operate around racism, to operate in this community, to be safe. My kids should not have to go through that at all. We should not still be teaching those lessons, and those are lessons that only Black families have to teach.
Right.
We're the only people that have to teach those lessons. We're the only people that have those conversations where our parents are talking to us about like, hey, when you were walking down the street, you have to do this, or when you're, you know, when you go and meet a white person, you have to dress a certain way and you have to talk a certain way. You need to wear your hair. We're the only people that have to have those conversations. We are tired of it. Just period. We feel like we are equals. We're equals, and we should be treated like equals, and we're just tired of not being treated like that.
Right. And a comment by a professional baseball pitcher. He said, and he's not Black. I'm not sure what his descent is exactly, but he said, I don't have to have a conversation with my kid, or my parents didn't have to have a conversation with me. When you get pulled over, this is how you should act. Or when you walk out the door, this is how you should act. There's a former wide receiver. I think he does NFL in the morning, and then he does Good Morning America. I meant to find his name. I'm drawing a blank on his name. But one of the things he said is he has to have a conversation with his son to say, hey, if you're in a situation where a cop's foot is on your throat, try to take deep breaths. I mean, try not to get overly stressed. Like, that is not a conversation that should be happening. And now, Tatiana Jefferson, we have to have that conversation with our female kids now as well. It's not safe. And Benjamin Crump, he's a lawyer, along with Lee Merritt. They're both lawyers, and they both are very active with the civil rights, and which we're still, they have a case every single week. But one thing he said is like, it's like hunting season for Black people. Now, anybody, you can agree with that if you want to or not, but the numbers do not lie. And when was the last time that we've seen police brutality done against someone other than African American? And I can't honestly name one. I can name numerous situations where they were nicer to someone that was not Black, to Caucasian person. They would walk them to the car. They would let them go get something to eat on the way to the. We don't even make it. We don't make it to the precinct. It's already over for us. So I honestly just think that it's reached a bigger point that I don't know who can handle. I don't think this is just going to go away. And one thing I said earlier is that this is a heart thing, and this is a mindset. This is how they're choosing to live. Just like there's generational curses and things that happen throughout your generation, there's generational racism. And at some point, people have to say, this is going to stop with me. I'm going to be the one that's going to change this. I'm not going to allow this to continue to go down. Al, I think you have something that you wanted to add and say.
I totally agree with Tyon was saying in regards to the mental mindset. And I was thinking about that today. I said all the stuff that was told to me growing up, from getting an education, getting, you might have to get 2 or 3 degrees to be successful, to walking down the street, to how you talk. It really brought a mental fatigue. And I was like, man, and I see why a lot of people are upset and acting out, because the people in the Black community are mentally fatigued. They are mentally tired. Like they tried to express themselves. They tried to be peaceful. They tried to be loving, but nobody has been listening. And so for all this stuff to happen in this particular way, we might not agree with that's the way it should be done, but I understand when somebody it's like you have poked the snake so many times. You keep poking it and you keep poking it, you keep poking the snake. Pretty soon, that snake is going to bite back. And so I think we're in the season now where these young generation ain't playing. They not playing with this racism, and they not playing with what you tell them how to treat somebody because of the color of their skin. And I really admire though the people, the younger generation under us. I admire their boldness to go out there and ask the questions and to do a sit-in or to do a standoff. I looked at different lives in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Baton Rouge, and the majority of the young people was standing there like, we're not putting up with this. We're tired of this stuff. And so I just think it needs to be a change. We need to go back to the original Constitution. It starts with the Constitution, with the writings of stuff and how we treat it, and really get a re-education of ourselves and a re-education of, because a lot of people still are naive to, they're used to what the history teacher taught them in middle school and high school. That's good, but it's so much more to it. There's more digging and research and really understanding. And like you said, Ben, if that you have to be able to go out there and really go understand other people and ask the question, well, why does my family keep saying that we shouldn't date or hang out with Black people? And people don't ask enough questions. People don't go out there to the community and find out what's going on. They try to make these assumptions on news channels and say, oh, well, you need to work hard, and if you work hard, you'll get it. But then you work hard, and then you have all these degrees, and then you go apply for all these particular jobs, but you still not qualified. That's the issue in the NFL with the affirmative action stuff, with minorities getting hired.
Right.
They have all these credentials, and the people are still not getting hired for these particular positions. This is a problem when it comes to the banking system. Certain people are getting business loans, but our people are not getting it. And we might have perfect credit. You might have an 800, but you're still not qualifying for certain things. It's so many layers to this. Right. And they better get it together because this they will shut this whole thing down. Yeah. they not playing right now. Like,
well, they want to destroy the system. They want to destroy the system. You know, and who blames them? right? I mean, when you look at all the stuff that you just mentioned, right, and you think about asking people to give up their power, who gives up their power, right? Nobody wants to give up their power. The only way the system changes is, is honestly through destruction. Like, it's probably going to have to get destroyed for us to actually see a change, because this system that's in place right now has been the same system that's been in place since the Constitution.
Right.
And you look at how America has operated. America has operated through violence. Go back to the Boston Tea Party, right? Like, the Boston Tea Party was civil unrest. They was tired of England, right? They was tired of England taking all their money. We gonna dump all your stuff in the river. We don't care.
Right.
Hey, y'all remember what happened in the Bible? What happened in Egypt, right? The 400 years.
Right.
We America in year 401. I just wanted to add that in.
Right. Well, since you want to go scripture, Al, you want to go to the Bible.
Let's go. We getting real. We getting real tonight.
For you. But let me say this before I get on my soapbox and start preaching. Let me say this: we're in a situation to where, we're damned if we do, if we're damned if we don't. Because now, just like Trey was saying earlier, that you have some individuals coming out in the day protesting and want to have their voices heard, and doing it in a manner that's according to the Constitution. But then as soon as the sun go down, and Talian know we experienced this in Oakland. As soon as the sun go down, you have these radicals and those who want to come in and destroy property. That's their main goal. It's to destroy property. And a lot of them are coming in from out of state. We had the same problem in Oakland, from different cities, from the suburbs. And you have, now they're even realizing that some of these groups are white supremacists that are coming in, stoking anarchy, stoking the violence. And so the news media is depicting, well, why are you destroying your own neighborhood? A lot of it, we're not destroying our own neighborhood. A lot of this violence is coming from outside of the city, outside of the state. So now we have the police that's brutally murdering us. And then we protest, and then at night, we have maybe a few, but I was looking at CNN and MSNBC, and when they had that curfew in Minneapolis at 8 o'clock, the majority of people was out there doing that curfew were Caucasian. And the police and the National Guard, they backed up. And then they backed up and went another block. And so now I'm saying, okay, now the majority of them were Black protesters, where they have backed up and gave them room to get it together. No. Then the next night they came out and they started shooting rubber bullets towards the protesters that haven't been invoked, shooting rubber bullets towards the actual news media. So now you have this situation to where the news media is depicting us as violent, and I'm not excusing everybody, because some of us are fed up to the point to where we may get violent and destructive. But a lot of it, as Trey said, is from outside. And the outside forces are coming in to destroy and disrupt and burn buildings and businesses that they don't even patronize. They don't even live there.
Right.
So now we're getting brutalized by the police department, and we're getting depicted as violent thugs when actual thuggish people are coming from outside. So basically, as Brother Al talks about Egyptian being in bondage for 400 years, we got to look at the history, the biblical history. Like I said, soon as Adam and Eve disobeyed God, because the serpent influenced them. Well, the serpent, the devil, who is the angel of the air, has been influencing the human race ever since.
Right. And
when you look at scripture, you look at Noah. God said the people are so wicked and so sinful, he had to destroy everybody. He just left Noah and his family. And then you look at Sodom and Gomorrah. God asked Abram, he said, if you can find 50 that are righteous, I'll save the city. Abram said, I can't find 50. He went down to 40, he went down to 30, 25, 20. He couldn't find 10 righteous people in Sodom, so he destroyed Sodom. And now you go down to the nation of Israel. That's right, they was in bondage for 400 years, but when they was released from bondage, Brother Al, and they had to wander in the desert for 40 years because of their stiff-necked attitude and their behavior when they created a golden calf, when Moses was on the mountain Sinai receiving the 10 Commandments, God wanted to kill all of them. And thank God for Moses that he pleaded with God. God repented and let them live, but they still all died in the desert when they roamed for 400 years and 40 years in a circle.
Right.
That's his chosen people. So what are you saying? What I'm saying is that we can see some change. We're going to see some revision. We're going to see some reform, but we're not going to see a total reformation until Jesus Christ comes back.
Right.
Because man is too sinful. He's too hateful. Racism, it just didn't start in America.
Right.
You got to remember now, when you look at biblical history, it just didn't start in America. There's been slaves, and there's been hatred and bigotry. You know, Jesus told a woman at the well, you know, the Samaritans couldn't even worship in the temple. That's bigotry.
Right.
That's discrimination. So basically, I'm gonna give you this scripture, and I'm gonna leave this alone, because this is so powerful and it's so prevalent to the day. You got to look at Revelations 20, 1-3. And it talks about, it says, it saw an angel come down from heaven, having a key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold of the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit and shut him up and set a seal upon him. Watch this now. That he should deceive the nations no more. That's the problem. Is the angel of the air, he's going to be bound for 1,000 years, then he'll be let loose for a season. The problem is, and that's why you can see it, is not only the police brutality, but it's those that are coming out at night. You know, it was a song back in the 60s called "The Freaks Come Out at Night." Well, this is the thief.
The thieves come out at night.
The thieves come out at night. So not only is he manipulating and influence the police department, he's manipulating and influence the white supremacists. So you have Satan, who is the angel of the air, until he is banded, until Christ comes back and bans him from this earth. You're going to continue to see hatred. You're going to continue to see bigotry, racism. Like I said, there may be some small reforms here and there, but it's not going to totally change as it is. And that's what I like about Brother Al. He said he's sharing Christ with these young folks. Not only do we need to know about protest, not only do you need your education, not only do you need have the desire to serve in your community, but you also need to know biblical scripture, because scripture is going to lead you and guide you, so the Holy Spirit can lead and guide you in the direction you should go. Right. Not your fleshly desires.
Right.
As long as you feed your spiritual nature, then that'll give you a desire to do what thus says the Holy Spirit and not what thus says the flesh. And a lot of these young kids are wrapped up in fleshly desires to where it's causing havoc, it's causing disruption, it's causing all of this chaos, to where if you see the big picture, then you can conduct yourself in a manner that's peaceful, but then you look towards, I'm not going to read John 14, but you got to read John 14 too, 1-4. He said, I go to prepare a place for you, and where I go, you may be also. I will come back to receive you as my own. So that's where we are, brothers.
Yeah.
And once we get an understanding of where we really are, once we see the big picture, see, we look at this microcosmic picture, but we got to see the big picture. And once we see the big picture, and he said, let not your heart be troubled.
Right.
You know, don't get so caught up to where you got to go totally off and lose your mind because of what's going on. Well, you know who's in control. You know, when I saw that policeman on George Floyd's neck, when I saw his knee on his neck, when I saw his eyes, the way he was looking at the guy, was saying, let him breathe, get off of him. When I look in his eyes, I saw Satan. That's who's doing the influencing. Right. Even though you got some, the racism is prevalent and the racism is real, but we got to look at who's actually the culprit, who's the real enemy. Right. And he's doing the influencing. Okay, I'm off my soapbox. You know, I haven't preached in a while, so I'm sorry, brother.
You're okay. You're okay, man. This is that platform for us to really to talk and everybody that's watching this, all the YouTube followers that we have, everybody watching this. I mean, this is what we're using this to really speak about what's going on. And Al, I know you're kind of chomping at the bit right there. So go ahead and share.
Well, if I can follow after that, man, the mic, he done blessed the mic. Oh,
Mic is hot.
Follow after that. That's everything he said is right, but the definitely part about the spiritual aspect is because what is possessing you and what spirit are you operating when there's really only two spirits, is the Holy Spirit and the spirit of the air. So which one are you really operating in? And so many people are so deceived because they're not seeing with the spiritual eyes, but they're seeing with the fleshly eyes. So they're really not looking on the inside as to what the person's intent is. So that's why sometimes, like with certain people, I'm trying to find out what's really going on in your heart. What is your intent? Right. And then if we know what your intent is, okay, then we can roll with it. But if your intent is to get something else after this later on, then we can't roll with it.
Right. That's true. I mean, and that's, you know, I appreciate people of other races. I appreciate Caucasians coming along and marching with us and going hand in hand. But if your motives are not correct, if your motives are not as of what we're doing, then you're creating division. So I'm gonna give everybody some homework here. Those scriptures that Pops laid out, I want you to go ahead and read those. Also, though, I want you to watch a movie, a documentary. It's called "I Am Not Your Negro," and in this documentary, you would be surprised as they would play clips from the '60s. Then they would show Ferguson, and you would be like, "What year is this? Are we in 2020 or are we in 1960?" And to me, that was like so eye-opening. Like this is something that has already happened, and it's continuing to duplicate itself. History repeats itself. It's not just something that's a saying. It's true. You think about old music. You think about old culture. You think about clothes or whatever. It repeats itself, and we're continuing to see this. And I think, Dad, you're right. We're not going to see a complete change until the Lord comes and until Jesus Christ comes back. So it's not as if, and this is not just a snap of the finger type of change, because like I said earlier, it's a mindset and it's what's in the heart. And you look at Derek Chafin. I mean, this guy had 17 complaints. 17, 16 of them was pretty much ignored. So this is an issue that is so deep that people, and I think people don't have any direction. I'm not going to speak on everybody because I know a lot of young people that have direction, that know the Lord and that know what direction they're going. Excuse me, but there's a lot though that are lost, and they're looking for something to cling on to, and they've been in the house for the past 2 months. So this is almost like the Purge. If you ever seen the Purge, this is almost like let's get out there and get everything that we have out. Ty, I see you over there. Add in. I don't know if you got something you want to add to it.
Nah, I'm just listening, man. As I'm listening, I'm just having so many things going through my head. Like I said, just with everything that's going on and just the chaos, you know, you have so many mixed emotions. You know, part of me want to be out there with them protesting and walking around. You know, another part of me is like, hey, as a teacher, I have a responsibility to my students. You know, as a family man, I have a responsibility to, you know, my kids, you know, things like that. So for me, there's this like war within me, you know what I'm saying? It was pulling,
right.
You know, because I feel so many different ways about just all this stuff, you know, like I said, growing up, and, you know, and one thing I want to say too is like, I feel like everybody should at least at one point in your life be a part of a protest. I think that having that experience and really standing up for something that you truly believe in is an amazing feeling. I've been to a couple protests. I've been, you know, in strike as well. You know, our teacher union went on strike a couple years ago.
Right.
You know, and things like that. But you know, for me, like I said, it's just that pull, man. Just, you know, just seeing everything that's going on and wanting to be out there, wanting to be able to speak to the young people, you know, see what's happening, give direction and guidance, things like that. As you know, as has been alluded to already in the conversation, where, you know, older people, us older individuals, should be trying to give guidance and advice to the younger generation. But you know, I can't. I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't really proud of what I'm seeing, too. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a part of me that's like, you guys are really out here, just out here doing it, trying to do whatever you can, trying to do what you feel is right, trying to do what you feel is best, and going against the grain. Not, you know, doing. People are telling you to sit down. You like, no, I'm not sitting down. You know, I thought about the thing with the Target. You know, I was like, man, you know, they're destroying Targets and stuff like that. And then, you know, I had to do some research. When I did some research, I found out one of the reasons why Target was one of the places that they kept on hitting was because when the protest first started and those protesters was out there getting tear gas, Target refused to sell them any products to help them. Right. So those protesters was out there trying to buy milk and stuff to clean their eyes, get tear gas out their eyes. Target refused to help them.
Wow.
So now Target has been on one of those, we don't care. We don't care. You know, and like I said, and then it's all about, you know, when you hear about, you know, this new generation, you know, and I don't want to get too far into politics, but you're starting to hear about, you know, Bernie Sanders and socialism and things like that. And a lot of these people, this young generation is really strong in that conviction for socialism. They want to destroy the capitalistic structure. You know, they are tired of it. You know, they are tired of just the 2% holding the wealth. They're tired of, you know, of those elements. And I mean, I think, like I said, the George Floyd thing happening and, you know, just the build up everything, you know, the coronavirus, I think all that is, you know, has combined to be the perfect storm.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like that song, I mean, the children are our future. You know, we used to laugh about that, you know, growing up, but now we're starting to really see that they have a different perspective than what I would say me and Tyon had, than also what my dad's generation had. Like there was a sign that somebody was holding up that was saying, you know, my grandparents marched in peace, but that's not what we're about. It says something to that effect. And that's exactly what we're seeing. And this isn't the first time, you know, I said this earlier, this isn't the 15th time. This is so many different times that we've seen this happen, and it just has reached an ultimate point. But like I mentioned, go check that out. I Am Not Your Negro. It was based on James Baldwin, and let me stop right here. This is what I love about what we're doing right now. We've talked about The Last Dance. We've talked about NFL diversity. Now we're talking about this, and we all have different perspectives, and that's what, to me, is what important about us being able to talk about this. But you know, it was a book that James Baldwin was writing before he died, but he ended up passing away before the book was released. and it talked about Medgar Evers, which he was murdered. It talked about Dr. Martin Luther King, and then also it talked about Malcolm X. So it's I think it's good for all of us to really understand and to watch that, because there's a lot of similarities, and there's a lot of similarities in the Bible. When you read the Bible and you see to today's time that this stuff is not new. Stuff is not new. It's not new under the sun. So I want to come to a point right now where we talk about what are some possible solutions that we may have. Maybe not solutions, maybe suggestions, maybe something, because I think there needs to be more roundtables like this. There needs to be more conversation. Now, the conversation, which there was today with the protesting, the curfew is, I believe, 7 o'clock in Dallas, but they're going to protest anyway because they had a conversation and the conversation didn't go anywhere. So the conversation now, has to equal some results and some change, and I think that's where it starts. I think it's us as African Americans talking to our white counterparts. Like I mentioned earlier on our show, that I had a conversation with a guy that came into the store last night, and he was like, "I really don't understand," and I'm glad he asked me that. He was like, "Are you okay if I ask you that?" I'm like, "It's fine," but there's something every week, almost, you could say bi-weekly if you want, and it's reached a boiling point. And then he said, "Well, I know there's people that get mistreated, whites, Hispanics, and blacks," and I'm like, "Yeah, but it is different. It is a different type of disrespect for us than it is for other races, and our realities are different." And I think when we walk out the door as Black men, it is different when a white male walks out of his front door. There's a lot of things that he does not have to think about. There's a lot of things like, well, if I get stopped at the light, if I get pulled over, I mean, there's a lot of different things. So I think there has to be some sitting down, but I think there has to be, this generation is wanting like clear cut things that they want to see. So I'll start with you, Dad. What are some suggestions or tips or something that you have?
Well, first of all, when we're dealing with the George Floyd situation, the other 3 police officers, right, they have to be arrested.
Yeah,
that's facts.
I mean, when you look at the video, and they received the autopsy, the family's autopsy came out today, and it totally contradicts what the county autopsy said.
Cover up.
It was right. Said it was asphyxiation. They said he had already passed on before he even got to the hospital. Actually, he was deceased when he was being kneeled on. So when you have one kneeling on your back, which is compressing your chest, plus the one that's kneeling on your legs, and then the main culprit is kneeling on your neck. So first of all, they got to arrest these other 3 police officers. Now, if they're going to charge him with accessory or if they're going to charge him with murder. And the second thing is, because of the intent, he has to be charged with murder too. I know murder 1 is going to be hard to convict because it has to be premeditated. But when you look at his history, they both worked at the nightclub together. So he knew him. And they interviewed the manager of the nightclub, and she said that he was fearful of blacks. And you can tell when he had his knee in his neck, he knew who he was. He had an intention to kill him. So murder 2 for him, murder 3 for the other 3. Now, the encouraging thing is that Keith Ellis, who's the district attorney for Minnesota, he's going to be handling the case. And he's a former congressman. And I think he'll do justice when it comes to being fair when it comes to the trial in the process. But the other encouraging thing is that, seeing these young, I know this is a sports show, and I love to see these young NBA players protesting and lending their voice to the situation. Right. And I think that's the other thing that has to be done. You got LeBron James, you got Malcolm Brogdon, you got Jaylen Brown, Steven Jackson, even though he's retired, which was a good friend of his. They call them, they look like brothers. Stephen Jackson said when they first met, he asked like, "Who's your daddy?" What's your daddy's name? They look so much alike. But that's encouraging to see these young men, especially NBA players, because the young folks look up to them.
Right.
And whether you want to be a role model or not, you're a role model. So take the forefront, take the role, and then they need to give Kaepernick a job, because Kaepernick is like, I told y'all.
Now y'all understand. Y'all finally understand why he was kneeling.
Understand.
Right.
So if you're not gonna give him a job, as a quarterback, give him a job in the front office. You need to make it right with him. And then once these things have been implemented, you got a lot of coaches also on the reform. They have the coaches committee now looking to do some reforming. So I think looking at the NBA will be a good start, to have them go in the forefront and lead these young folks into a positive direction, lead these young folks to the polls. I mean, if all these young folks voted, man,
Right.
we got to get 45 out of there. Once we get them out, and then we can put Biden in, and Biden's got to have a black female running mate. I'm looking at either Stacey Abrams, or I'm looking at the congresswoman Kamala Harris, and then the congresswoman from Miami, because they interviewed her husband, who's an ex-police officer. Now he's the mayor of one of the cities in Florida. I can't remember now, but she was on the committee, the impeachment committee, and she did a great job on that committee. So he's got some good choices. He got to make those choices. And then last but not least, I'm waiting to see if these people are going to be tested. You got a lot of people in the streets. We had social distancing, last month. Everybody rubbing shoulders, rubbing elbows, even though they got on masks. So if the coronavirus, COVID-19 rate doesn't skyrocket, and the death toll is still continuing to be consistent as far as the curve being flattened out, then I think they can start with sports again. Everybody can wear masks and have some social distancing, in the stadium. So that's something that good can come out of this bad situation.
Yeah, and I agree with everything. And if anybody looks at third-degree murder, that says unintentional. This was not unintentional. This was not a mistake. His hand was in his pocket, like, I have control over you. And I know that it's almost like he knew his personality, which I believe they did know each other. They worked in the same nightclub, like Dad said. So I think they knew each other, and I think he was like, I know your personality. I know what you're not going to do. So that's intentional. But Tyon, I'll go to you. I think you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. For me, I think we need to have some type of independent investigator who oversees our police force, who does the screening, who does the hiring, etc. I think that process needs to be more intense, so that we aren't hiring racist people, so we aren't hiring people who aren't properly trained, who are inadequate, who are scared of their community. Like that's a problem as well. Like, how are you a police officer scared of the community that you're supposed to serve? Right. That's a problem. If you are scared, you probably shouldn't be a police officer. Right. So I think that we need to have some type of independent system that is put in place to handle that, to handle those things with the police. I do think that we need to have, like I said, a total reform of the police system and justice system, completely. That starts with getting number 45 out of office right now, completely out of office, and pushing candidates who really are for our cause, right? We need to find individuals, whether we groom them ourselves or not, because most people, let's be real, most people who get their agendas met in office typically groom those people to get in office, right? They invest, they fund, they do. And those are some things we should probably look at doing. We need to probably look at, starting to groom and invest and fund individuals who we want to get our agenda across, you know, and we need to start breaking down these barriers. As I think, you know, with everything that's going on right now, it is a rallying call. It is a cry. It is a way to get the attention of America as a whole, and force them to do something. And I think that is what's going to happen.
Yeah, you made a great point too. A lot of candidates are groomed. They're prepared. They're like almost put into they're put into the spot before they even get there. They're put into the position before they even get there because they're so prepared and trained, and it's like giving somebody the test before they take the test. That's almost like what it is, and that's something I definitely agree that we need to do. Al, I'll pass it to you to round us out.
Number one, we need to go vote. We need to go vote, and we need to go vote. Especially, I know everybody talks about the big presidential election, but we need to find out our local congressmen, our city council, our state representatives, and people who are in the Senate, in the House. We need to hold their feet to the fire. If you're going to say you're going to do what you're going to, if you're saying that you're going to do what you say you're going to do, and then do it. We need to really bring the agenda to them, because they're the ones that's going to pass the law and make the laws. That's the first thing. Vote and hold them accountable. Next thing, for our community, we need to educate ourselves more. I began like thinking of books that I want to go back and read and have an understanding about. I mean, some people only know about Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Barack Obama. It's a lot more people than those three who have done justice, and we need to really go back and understand the history. We need to go back and probably watch documentaries about Selma. We need to go back and understand documentaries about the civil rights movement back in the 60s. We need to go back and understand about the Poor People's Campaign. It's a lot of things that we need to understand. We probably even need to go back and understand what happened after Blacks were freed from slavery and understand the things that they went through, where the situations were a lot worse than when they were enslaved because they had nowhere to go. So definitely begin to educate yourself. Another thing we need to have like more mental counseling especially for Blacks in the community, where there needs to be a safe haven for especially men to go talk things out of things that they're struggling with, because they have a lot of things that they've held in their heart that needs to be talked out about. Also, there needs to be healing on both sides. Definitely bring people to the table. Come sit down. Let's talk. But then now let's have strategy, and let's make let's help the communities out on both sides. Let's find out how can we assist you? How can we help you? Let me understand you, and let's understand each other. And then the last thing I want to say is we need to reflect on the inside of us. We need to really reflect, and do we truly have the intentions of God in our heart, and really do some soul searching. Like, we had a season of coronavirus where people were locked in, and there was some people who did a lot of soul searching, because you could tell by who came out and supported. And then there's some still on that baloney, and still where they at. There needs to be some soul searching.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you 100%. And I appreciate each and every one of you guys' opinion, and also suggestions and what we need to do. And it's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us. There's not just one person that can just stand up and do this. It's going to take all of us, and it's going to take us together. And so I want to appreciate everyone for tuning in, and make sure to subscribe, make sure to click that bell. This is BS3 Radio. We talk sports, we talk music, we talk life. And this is really a topic that we had to talk about, because sports are going to be here. It's going to be here. It's going to be here tomorrow. It's going to be here whenever. But this is like one of those conversations that have to be had now. And sports is really like not important right now. It's not a hot topic that needs to be talked about. This is something that needs to be talked about. Rest in peace to George Floyd. Continue to pray for his family. I will put the links in the bio. I'll put the scriptures down there that my dad mentioned, also that documentary. And then there was another documentary that I was thinking of, but now I think I'm drawing a blank. I can't remember. But anyway, thank you guys for coming on, sharing your opinion, sharing what it is that was on your heart. I think we all needed to get this out, and everybody that's watching, leave your comments down there. Also, I agree with Al too, just talking about counseling. It's good to talk things out. When you hold it in, you start to erupt. So Dad, thank you. Tyon, thank you. And Al, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right.
Thank you for having us, man. Appreciate it. Real quick before you go, James Baldwin, read James Baldwin. If anybody, James Baldwin is a good person to read. Invisible Man, Ralph Ellison, very, very good book. The great insight for African-American male. So.
Definitely. All right. Well, you guys have a good one. God bless.
Right,
God is
too.
love. Peace.
All right.